What is up, citizen detectives? This is Yellowjackets Buzz Podcast, here to talk about Season 2, Episode 6, Qui. I am Glenn Rubenstein, joined by NYC Demon Diva Issa, as always, today to talk about a monumental episode, an important episode.
Yes, it was part of the story since the beginning. I couldn't wait to get to this.
Kind of nuts. No, really nuts. I feel like I don't think we've ever seen in Yellowjackets as much of a separation in tone, so much between the past and the present. The present day storyline in this episode moved very fast, moved things along, got the story where it needs to be for the third act of season 2. The past storyline with Shauna and giving birth, we knew this was coming. The entire series was building up to this. That being said, the twists and turns were so dramatic in that second half, and with the ending, I think I'm confident in saying I never want to watch the last few minutes of this episode ever again.
It was very rough, very very rough. Yeah, I just finished watching it. I had a busy weekend, so I just watched it, and I wasn't ready for that. And I tried to not ask you, and I avoided spoilers all weekend. Then I just finished watching it, and I was like, "Well, that was something. I wish you would have told me to prepare."
Well, so here's the boat that I'm in. So one, I watched this Thursday because you had a very busy weekend. We said, okay, we weren't going to do this Thursday night. We went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which was also emotionally heavy. I don't want to get into it, but an emotionally heavy film for a variety of reasons. I came home and I was amped up. I couldn't sleep. I'm like, I'm going to watch Yellowjackets now because I don't want to be spoiled. So watching these two things back to back Thursday night, I was just a wreck. I just needed a good hour for an ugly cry before I went to sleep. And even then, I was just devastated. My wife did not watch the episode with me Thursday night. She said, I will watch this. You sleep in late on the weekends. I will watch this without you. And I didn't want to spoil anything for her because she was like, oh, how was it? I'm like, I'm not saying anything. You just watch it. Finally, last night, she's like, oh, you're going to do the podcast tomorrow. I haven't watched it. Let's watch it now. Again, this is where I put my respect for other people and no spoilers ahead of my own personal preference, because I couldn't say I never want to watch this episode again.
Yeah, I know, which is funny because I told you, I texted you, and I was like, "Hey, I just walk in. I'm gonna watch, and we'll record the show." And it was like really funny because when I got done, I was like, I know why you didn't like warn me that it was gonna be emotionally heavy, because we never spoil it for each other.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, I don't know, I'm torn. I wish you could have warned me. And then I was like, no, I don't want you to warn me. But it was a very, it was a rough episode to get through, and I don't know. I'm a little sad. He just left me drained. It's the best way to
Yes.
describe how I feel after watching that episode. And just want to apologize ahead of time to our listeners and viewers. I am a little under the weather after an insane weekend. So, but I'm still here. That's what matters.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate you rallying to do this, because I can't even imagine
No,
discussing this
I
with
actually
anyone else.
almost feel it was really funny, guys, because I told Glenn, find somebody to fill in so we can get the episode out, on time. And after watching, I was like, no, I don't know that I would have wanted you to recap that with anybody, because I really want to be a part of this, because we've been waiting for
Yeah.
Shauna to give birth since last season. Like, it's been building up to this. It's a crazy episode.
Yeah. So and even during watching this, it was funny rewatching it last night because my wife completely was on board and along for the ride with the second half of the episode. And when I first watched it, we'll talk about it, but when I first watched it, I was like, okay, something is up. Maybe it's just I've watched enough that my spidey sense was tingling. I was like, what? This isn't going to be just super smooth, right? Like, oh, she had the baby, she has trouble getting the baby to feed, she bonds with the baby, and the baby feeds successfully, and everyone's happy in the wilderness. I knew something was coming. I just wasn't quite expecting the swerve that we got.
There was a lot of swerves. There was a lot of, and the whole time I'm asking myself questions, because obviously I haven't seen any conspiracies. I've been avoiding spoilers. So I'm under the impression at first that the baby makes it, and I'm like,
Mhm.
well, how are they gonna keep them both alive? You know what I mean? Like I had so many questions, and then we get to the scene, which we'll get to when we break things down, where she hallucinates them,
Yeah.
doing things to the baby, and I'm like, why did I fear that that's what was gonna happen? And then we get the reality of what happened. It was literally a roller coaster.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess with that in mind, I just want to set how I'm going to approach this because I thought about this a lot in the couple of days. And I normally try not to overthink how we're going to do this podcast, but look, I think we're going to try and do what you've come to expect with us with a lighthearted tone and being critical and crazy and spinning and spitballing ideas for most of this. But yeah, I think it's much like the episode, the emotional weight and darkness of all this and grief is going to come at the end. So I think we're going to try and follow this scene by scene and detach a little bit what we know is coming from the discussion, just to get into it. And let me just say and get out of the way. I can't even imagine. I know the audience for Yellowjackets predominantly female, and I know they've never done trigger warnings on an episode before. But my heart goes out to anyone that's ever had this experience and watched this episode and didn't know this was coming and had to have that reawakened within them. I mean, I very much feel for anyone that went through that process of watching this. But that being said, let's start with the beginning with a flashback to health class, watching a video on the miracle of childbirth. Coach Ben put the tape in and hit play on the VCR. That was his contribution to health class. Man, this took me back. Issa, how many of these videos did you have to sit through growing up?
Too many. And I
Oh,
gotta tell you something. There's like I can't watch videos of birth. I can't. I think they contribute to why I don't want kids, honestly. And maybe it goes back to when I had to watch them in school. I don't know. It doesn't look like a beautiful experience. It looks painful, it looks messy, and maybe you know what? I'm gonna blame it on health class now.
yeah. Hey, I think there is sort of a scared straight element to it. I
Yeah.
being a little bit older than you, and I'm sure anyone that is the late Gen X that grew up in the 80s that's a Yellow Jackets fan. For us, these health classes were twofold. Actually, this was really interesting. It was like, first and foremost, don't get pregnant. Whatever you do, don't get pregnant. Second was don't get AIDS, because it was the peak of
And
AIDS
don't do drugs.
awareness.
Yep.
Yeah, there's some don't do drugs in there, but they were really like, don't get pregnant, don't get AIDS. It was funny that Van, they were passing around the condoms. Randy was making jokes about it. I remember the anecdote, and for some reason, I don't know why they told us this, but it was always make sure you use a condom, and then they would spitball like an urban legend, and they would be like, I went to high school with somebody that used saran wrap and a rubber band, and they got pregnant that way. And I'm just like, who's using saran wrap and a rubber, like who's MacGyvering it because they don't have a condom available?
You'd be surprised. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised.
And it was the 80s, right? I feel like in the 90s, condoms were everywhere. In the 80s, it was still, you had to go to the drugstore and the pharmacist, and you would go up there and it would be like a comb and some chewing gum and, a home enema kit and, Us Weekly. Oh, and some condoms. Trying to sneak it in. In the 90s, it got much easier to purchase. So this is great seeing them in the mid 90s and having this. And then Jeff is passing Shauna a note using code for their sexual relations as tutoring sessions.
Yeah, I'm gonna start calling it that. Jeff is so cool, man.
This was a replacement Jeff, different actor playing young Jeff. I think they might have had the
Yeah.
voice of the original Jeff, because I saw there was a separate Jeff voice credit in the end credits. I like Shauna trying to cover by immediately getting up to go to the restroom with the note, must destroy the evidence, and saying, Jeff, poppies, Shauna, or Jackie likes poppies. So explaining why Jackie's boyfriend is sending her note.
So basically, Shauna was smarter about evidence when she was younger than she is now as a grown woman.
Do you remember in high school Like you would get the notes where you just wouldn't sort of care, but then you would get that super confidential note where somebody's talking about their crush or talking shit about another friend, and you would be like, "Is there a paper shredder nearby? I need to light
No,
this
that's
on
usually the
fire."
note that you get caught by the teacher passing, and the teacher reads it in front of everybody. You never had that happen to you?
Oh yeah, and you're like, "What? You were
Yeah.
responsible for the JFK assassination?" Like it's just the biggest confession is always the one you get caught with. So I remember people lighting notes on fire, like tearing them up and flushing them in the toilet, then the cogs of the toilet. Like a confidential note needs to be disposed of, like MI Mission Impossible style.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. So good on Shauna for then knowing to cover up the evidence.
Yeah, I'm proud of them. What was your
Yeah.
go-to for destroying the notes? Mine
I
was
was
the
big.
toilet, unfortunately. I would like tear it and like flush it down.
Yeah, the Terran flush or the I think that's why I made friends with at least one kid that went across the street to smoke at lunch break. Because I was like, hey, can you burn this for me? I need like your incineration services. Also, did every high school have that in the 80s and 90s? Like there was the group of kids that would go across the street to smoke and they'd be like, I'm non-school property, you can't bust me, dude, you know?
Yeah, I remember that's the first time I ever tried a cigarette. I was trying to be cool with these kids, and I was like, "Oh, I smoke all the time. I never touch one." They were like, "Oh, prove it." So I had to smoke. It was very obvious right away that I I would never touch a cigarette until that point.
I drove by. It was funny that I would drive by um the kids, and some of them were my friends, but it was normally like the goth kids and the alternative kids. Like it would just look like a bunch of goths waiting for a bus smoking cigarettes. But yeah, I never went over there and stood there and smoked with them. If I had it to do all over again, Issa, I would at least go there for one cigarette.
Well, just pretend that. Just tell them you want to try it. Don't try to be cool and say you do it all the time like I did, and then choke.
Yeah, I was never a smoker, but yeah, just in my mind, vivid memory of what that looked like. I love that Misty's question about childbirth is how much blood is there on average?
Oh, Misty, she's special, man. Good question,
Yeah,
though.
yeah, absolutely. But then we have perhaps one of the best needle drops in the history of this show, just a smash cut to song 2 by Blur. And the loud guitars coming in and the woohoo as Shauna is in birth, in labor, and going through this being lied down. And remember, they just came in out of the blizzard with this. They
Right.
still don't know where Crystal is. And Shauna is like, we need to get this over with, get this out of me.
Yep.
And then we get the shot of Misty going in the delivery position as we cut to the credits.
Yep. Intense
Um,
opening. Intense opening.
oh my God. So then back in present day, Misty is checking herself into the wellness retreat with brass knuckles, binoculars, a syringe, and some sort of, I'm assuming it's a sedative. I can't quite make out on the bottle what that is. But yeah, Misty is there,
I mean,
ready
she's
for some,
prepared. She's prepared.
oh, for any situation,
Yep.
you know?
Always.
Yeah. Handcuffs, honey, a jar of honey, one of the little jar of jams. I think that's a Bon Mar jar of jam. We got the advent calendar they had at Christmas, and it's all those little jars of different flavors. It was lovely.
Oh
But nice
yeah,
to
you told me
see.
about that.
Just so weird. It's weird in your 40s, the things that you're like, oh, we got a little advent calendar of jams, and they were delightful. So Misty understands.
She gets it.
Yes. But this is just awesome as she's checking in. And then I was in such suspense over this, and I still want to know is that she turns over her phone and we see Walter 2 text messages. She doesn't see what they say.
She tries. They don't let her.
Yes.
I like
Oh,
what they say though. They say that phones made what did he say? Well, his exact words were something like phones make other people's our priorities or something like that. I thought it was quite deep.
yeah, that we're a slave to the priorities of other people was
Yes,
the
that was
point.
that was I actually really like that line. I was like, that's a valid point. That's a valid point.
I feel like it's been personal growth for me in recent years to realize that I don't have to return texts right away. And it's okay to leave texts unread. And it's
Oh,
okay
I'm
sometimes
an
to
expert
read
at that.
text. Yes.
Shut up, Glenn.
You at
I'm an
least have.
expert at never texting back ever.
Well, but I send you crazy texts sometimes about like, hey, I'm watching the Spanish music video and I've got this thought that I just wanted to share with you. um, but no, you have read receipts turned on at least. I turned off read receipts on my phone because I'm like, I don't want people to know if I read their text or not.
Well, a lot of times I feel like if at least they know that I'm not even looking at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes them feel any better or not, but I'd rather know that, oh, she just hasn't gotten to it than, oh my God, she just left me a red.
Yes. Captive to other people's priorities and schedules. So immediately Misty runs into Lottie or Charlotte, which I'll never get used to. Everyone keeps saying Charlotte. And it's interesting that Misty is hitting Charlotte, hitting Lottie with all this, oh, you kidnapped Natalie. You're running a call. I'm going to call the IRS. And Lottie is like, hey, she's so relaxed when she gets past the initial shock of seeing Misty that she's saying, hang out. Maybe you'll find this beneficial as well.
Right, right. I think Misty can't understand that Natalie's just there.
Yeah. There, I'll tell you, if this season, I believe the season's 9 episodes, we haven't seen it confirmed that it's past that. This episode, and there was one other episode earlier this season that I feel like have been the like shortcuts where they wanted 10 episodes, but there's just been a few things that happen a little too fast, and I feel like a lot of the present day stuff happened very, very fast this episode.
Right, agreed.
Especially
Yeah,
when
I
we-
mean, we'll get
yeah.
to it later, but even Shauna arriving at the wellness center, like it just felt like it just happened like so fast, right? Like Jeff told her next thing you know she's there. Like, yeah, they're speeding up through the present day storyline.
And it's interesting seeing where Lottie's going with this because she's like asking Misty to stay. Misty seems, I'm just looking at the look on Christina Ricci's face. Misty seems confused when Lottie's like, hey, can you stay a while? It'll be helpful for Natalie and you. Misty's like, I'm welcome here. You want me to stay? You're not trying to just get rid. I think Misty Quigley is so used to people trying to get rid of her that she's puzzled when Lottie is asking her to stick around.
Yeah, but I mean, well, we know things about Misty that we don't know if they know those things about her or not, right?
Yeah. Cut back to Shauna with Callie and Jeff. Cops want Shauna to come in immediately. I like she just tries to put it off, like, oh, maybe later this week, maybe next week. Oh, what, today?
Same.
That's like me when I've got like I got a call from the dentist the other day, like a new dentist, and I'm like, oh, we could do it sometime in June. He's like, I have an opening tomorrow, and it's like, oh, well, maybe later this week. Okay, I guess we can do it now.
Yep.
But I love that Callie is just sort of resigned to this. Jeff is freaking out. And Shauna says, it probably would have been better if you just would have slept with the cop.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a good thing she said that out loud.
Yeah. I do think the events of this episode make Shauna's approach to parenting, her detachment, it all makes a lot more
It
sense.
explained
After
a
this week.
lot after this episode, and now I get it because I always like questioned it, and yeah, I get it.
Yeah, she emotionally shut down a little bit, or
I was actually even like, and we'll get to it, but I was reminiscing about that. It was like Shauna really went through, and I know I always call her messy, and we always like have fun with the podcast, but I was like, when you start thinking about them out there, I just can't imagine Shauna ever being normal after everything that she's been through. And we haven't even seen half of it, technically speaking. We still don't know how the story ends, but just based on the things that she's had to go through out there, I'm surprised she can function, honestly.
Yeah.
She's the one who should have been in Switzerland in a mental hospital, not Lottie. It should have been Shauna.
I mean, Shauna could definitely use it's never too late. It's never too late to get therapy and deal with things. And I think that we'll talk about that later, but I think that's if I'm going to give Jeff the benefit of the doubt, that he's not just shipping his wife away. That Jeff recognizes that Shauna could use some healing.
Which is
Back
why he's probably so understanding.
maybe I mean part of me though is just like yeah, like if that's if I'm good again if I'm giving Jeff the benefit of the doubt. If I'm not, it's just like dude, you're just like trying to get her
I
out of there for the time being.
Right, right. I mean, yeah, I see your point.
Yeah. He's already thinking I'm gonna invite Randy over. We're gonna order a bunch of pizza. It's gonna be like a bros weekend while my
Listen
wife's
to
away.
NWA. It's gonna be great.
Yes. It's gonna be awesome. So cut back to childbirth in the wilderness. And I love that the first thing someone suggests is maybe we should boil some water. That's what people do, right?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know where to start with this.
Everything I know about childbirth
Yeah,
comes from
everything I
TV
know
and
about
movies.
childbirth is avoided. That's what I know about
Yeah,
childbirth.
just avoid it. I had an ex. Never mind. I'm not gonna get into it all. But no.
Please, please don't make me laugh.
Okay. No, I'll tell you what it is. You'll appreciate this.
Okay.
I'll have an ex that she would like list her fears, and she would like rank all the STDs she was afraid of, and then she would be like, and then I'm afraid of childbirth because getting pregnant is the ultimate STD. That was her viewpoint on it.
Oh, I love that. Same. I like that. I'm gonna start using that terminology.
But no, everything I know about TV, everything I know about childbirth is TV and movies. So it's like boil water, get some sheets, get some towels, and I don't know what you do from there. Like, also, I don't know how common breech was it when the baby's turned around. What is that?
Reach,
Yeah,
baby.
breech
I know what you're
birth.
talking about. Yeah.
I don't know how common breech birth is where the baby comes out feet first. I don't know how common that is in real life, but I swear to God, in TV and movies, half of probably 75% of all child deliveries are breech births, where, oh my God, we have to turn the baby around. Like that's very common in every TV and movie.
Oh, God.
So that's why it was funny when they kind of alluded to that in
All
this.
right. So if you're in this situation, would your first thought be boil water?
Well, you want a sterile surface. You want sterility, basically, and then you need towels and sheets because it's going to get messy, just with fluids, and whatnot. So it makes sense. But it's interesting that Misty, teenage Misty, who seems like she's literally been preparing for this her entire life.
Her whole life. That's it. This is her moment.
It's also interesting because this experience kind of explains. I bet you if you talk to teenage Misty about what do you want to be when you grow up, midwife, veterinarian, she probably thought she would be able to deal with things like this. So it's interesting she went the other route and became an end of life care nurse. This pivotal moment here on what we see. So yeah, everyone's saying she would be timing the contractions. This was very intense. But it was also very interesting to watch a bunch of 90s teenage girls trying to figure out what they knew about childbirth.
I did like because as I'm watching it, I'm stressed out about it and thinking what I asked. It's like, what would I do in this situation? Do I even know how to handle this? But I think it was young Natalie who says, hey, women have been giving birth for millions of years. And I'm like, she's right. Women were giving birth like this in the wilderness with no tools, no nothing, millions of years ago. So it makes sense to like, you should be able to do it without having all of this knowledge.
I will say, and this is just me, I'm not speaking for anyone else, but as someone who was a teenager in the 90s, I feel like I've seen enough depictions of Lamaze class and birthing classes in TV and movies that I'm surprised there was no breathing. There was no, you know what I mean? There was like no, or even ice chips. They didn't get snow or anything to kind of cool her down. That's what I would have done based on TV and movies. I would have done like a poor imitation of Lamaze breathing.
Well, you would have been a better midwife than me and all of the people that were in that room with Shauna.
Yes, ice chips and that's what I know from
what
TV
was that again?
It's like like the breathing.
That sounds like the Jason noise from Friday the 13th.
It's very similar. You just speed it up. It's the Kill, 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 ka, 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 ka. Just do that and just speed it up, and that's Lamaze.
Okay, great. I'll think of
Yes.
Jason and I'll think of the Amityville house voices.
So I like that Lottie says, let's share our hopes and dreams.
Look at the live chat on YouTube right now. Somebody said nobody paid attention to the math class, Glenn.
I tell you, like I've seen it, I've just seen it depicted. In the movie Summer School, they're going to Lamaze class. There was an episode of Family Ties where Alex is taking joining his parents at Lamaze class, pairing up with a single mother. And I'm just saying, I feel like I've seen a few hours worth of depictions, you know?
I just know I want nothing to do with I can't. I'm the kind of person. I'm the auntie that will sit outside the hospital room waiting until it's all done and said, and then I walk in and see like, okay, let me meet the baby. Literally, I
Yes.
done it 3 times. Like I had 3 nephews. I never go in that room. No, not for me.
Um, yeah. So it's funny, two childless people doing this recap. This is the perspective we bring. This reinforces our life decisions. So Lottie says, let's share our hopes and dreams. And
Why?
then
Why at this moment? Like, okay, whatever. Whatever works for you, Lottie. Listen. My hopes
wilderness.
if I'm Shauna, my hopes are drinks are that you shut the F up. Like that's it. That's what I would want at that moment.
Yeah, wilderness. I hope Shauna doesn't die.
Oh my god. Why would you say that? I think somebody screamed like wilderness. I just hope she doesn't die. It was so funny too because yeah, same. I was thinking the same thing, honestly.
They didn't have the comedy though, where then one of the characters starts, acting like they're telling Santa what they want for Christmas.
Right.
Like, and I hope for, yeah. um but no, this was a nice moment. That yes, their hopes with each other. Yeah, it's interesting. No one's talking about like, well, I really hope we get rescued. That'd be pretty cool.
I
Yeah.
don't think anybody's thinking about that at that particular
Yeah.
moment.
1996. Really hope Motley Crue gets back together with Vince Neil. What, Lottie? You said share our hopes. You didn't specify. You didn't say they had to just be about the childbirth. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear Ford's coming out with the Expedition. Really would like one of those for my next birthday for my graduation gift. But no, I like that. Yeah, Lottie's saying, they're saying let your pain. This argument with Ty and Lottie is very interesting to see sort of the faction forming here with some of the split during this. The people that will go and give the offering versus that are hanging out. Lisa's looking for Natalie in present day. Okay? I want to get your take on this.
Mm-hmm.
Was Natalie on something in this episode?
I felt that way.
Yeah.
I felt that way. There was something about adult Natalie on this episode that felt dark and even borderline unlikable.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just like, if this is your first time watching Yellowjackets, let's just say you just tuned in for this episode, I don't think that you will walk away loving Natalie. And I don't know why they edited her that way. And I'm curious to see what we go into next because I did feel something changed, something clicked, something is weird with her right now.
Well, and remember that we did have, with the break here, remember that Natalie and Lottie and the Travis revelation, and Natalie had that therapy, the regression therapy, where she had the visions of herself as the Antler Queen and all of them dying. So I'm wondering if it's going to come out similar to what Shauna dreamed. I'm wondering if we're going to find out that there's, Misty was going on about how good the food was. I'm wondering if there's
7D
some.
on the chat, on the live
Yeah.
YouTube chat right now is saying the drink, the purple people make them. So they think that they might have given her something, which, you know what, if we want to conspire, and again, I haven't been on Reddit or anything, it will make all the sense, right? Because Lottie's not having these visions. I mean, we know she's medicated, but it will make sense if everybody's on something there.
Yeah, even like a low dose psychedelic or something. But and
maybe they put it in the honey and that's why it sells so well.
As someone who does a lot of work in marketing for alternative health and supplement products, like you get some low dose hallucinogenic mushroom laced honey, that would probably sell like gangbusters right now.
I don't know, but whatever tea you told me to buy last night is the only reason why I'm literally talking right now because I have
Oh,
no
throat
voice.
coat. Yeah,
Yeah, the throat goat.
throat coat with slippery elm. It's got like slippery. It's got like tree, like slippery elm bark inside of it, but it's amazing.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna make me a big tea before we go live. I was drinking it as I was watching the episode because well, you heard me. I sent you a voice note. I had no voice, so that literally is the only reason. I don't know how long it'll last, but we're here.
No, absolutely. So the way Natalie is really messed up. Natalie's outside shooting at things. We know Natalie is an excellent shot.
Correct. I'm
So
glad you
not right
picked up
now.
on that. I'm glad you picked up on that because I was like, no, that's not her. What is she doing?
Yeah, I think Natalie, my hunch is that that therapy messed her up and maybe Natalie fell off a little bit as a coping mechanism about Travis's death.
Look,
Um,
I at this point, just based on what we've seen up until this point that they have gone through in the wilderness, I don't care what they do, what they need to do to cope. Like I get it. I get it.
yeah. And what's interesting is to Lisa, she's talking about, I killed my best friend with Travis. And it's very interesting that she's about, she's saying that she thought Lottie had done all this, but Natalie's now saying it was my fault. And Natalie says, I made him believe I told him, and then gets cut off. And is she about to confess about faking Javi's death? Like there's something, they get up to the brink of, I mean, they're very close as adults to addressing things, but at the same time, they're not saying it explicitly because I think, they're about to show us that shit's about to get even crazier back in the wilderness, and that will be far more effective than was there. But yeah, Natalie's saying the same thing that's within Travis was in me. This darkness they brought back. So this was very interesting. But yeah, Natalie is not doing well this episode. We saw a very different Natalie
Yeah,
because we did so much fucked up shit out there. Maybe it was to survive.
but maybe we didn't deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we
And
didn't deserve to
that's
survive.
deep. That was deep.
And now that I'm thinking about this, look,
Are they gonna? I'm not even gonna ask it. I can't. Okay.
okay, but I did not think there was any scenario. I knew when at the end when Shauna saw them eating the baby, I knew it was a dream. Like I knew there was no
Oh yeah.
scenario, but the way that they were building this up with Natalie, I could see where the first with everything that happened in present day was leaving that door and that possibility open to make that fake out believable at the end. I understand that. And we'll talk
Right.
about this even with what Lottie was doing. Back at the video store, we've got Van and Ty. And Ty's seeing the bills that are there. Van is saying what happened when Ty was in the untied, the alternate personality.
I love how they don't know how to refer to. I guess we call her Isa. I get like do you talk to her? Do you talk to me? I don't know. Like I thought that was so funny that they don't. They. I mean, there is definitely a personality thing, but they don't know how to address it.
Yeah. And Thaisa is apologetic about that. And she's really trying to figure out like the we. Who is the we when she said we're not supposed to be here? Who is the
It's
we?
obviously Van and I think it's Van and Ty.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, this episode is where I think it moved a little fast. It felt like it was just this magnet of Lottie Matthews pulling them all to the compound in as
Right.
few moves as possible. So yeah, this was good conversation. I just like watching Van and Ty and their dynamic as grown-ups, and it's very interesting to see this compared to what we saw when they were younger. The more moments we have like this, it just makes me appreciate more this casting and the way this has been all put together. I think it's just brilliant just to watch the chemistry these two have in
Yeah,
both timelines.
the casting is something that I talk about every time somebody brings up this podcast or this show to me. It's just how they manage to match the adult versions to the teenage versions and how perfect everything is working out. Like it's just great. I am the adult auditions that they made this season with Ben and Lottie, they were just perfect. Perfect.
70 in the chat is saying, how would you describe Van's reactions to Ty? I can't seem to pinpoint it. My point of reference, because I've been here before, this is how you process hanging out with someone who you were really in love with,
But hurt you.
but hurt you.
Correct. You
And
care about but
yeah.
you have your guard up. That's it's the exact same vibe that I get.
Yeah.
Like that
And
one ex, the one that got away. That's what it is.
and good on Van because they're like on day 2 or 3, and let me tell you, my guard would have been down. The middle of the night kissing thing, I would have immediately. I don't care if you're possessed.
Man,
Like
you're
I'm
so
just giving in.
soft. You're so soft. No, I
But
would have woken her ass up with a slap.
okay, but let me just give this food for thought. If you're
Okay.
really over someone and shutting them out, you don't let them into your house because the more you let them
You
in, you're
can't.
just chipping away at that barrier and
Okay,
boundary.
but you can you can still love and care about someone and not want them like that, even if you had that kind of relationship with them. I think you can disconnect that.
I think you can, but I think that's where it starts to get tricky was with the physical contact, you know?
That's why I said I would have slapped them, but
Yeah.
it's weird because it's a great question that 7D makes in the chat because that's what I get. I get Van loves her, and again, I think that even if these girls never wanted to speak to each other again with what they went through, they will forever be tied and they will forever wanna, I don't know, be there for each other because nobody's gonna understand it the way that they do. So
Yeah.
even if Ty just messed up to a point where they probably on a normal relationship will never talk to this person again because of what they went through, they're bonded for life. So I feel like they're always gonna let each other in.
So Misty has given herself a pep talk trying to give Shauna labor coaching. And then she sees the blood on her hands, memories, clear line between that and Crystal.
Well,
And
as you mentioned, they just walked in. They
yeah,
just walked in from that happening. I don't think Misty has had the time to process what happened with her bestie out there.
yeah. God, this is where the break is crazy because
I
it's if you watch these episodes, then God, I really don't want to watch this episode again. But I'm telling you that if you watch these two back to back, I think it's probably a little bit of a different experience than to have the gap week that we had between these two episodes
Yeah, shout out to
contextually.
Nakisha in the chat who's asking. I didn't bring it up this time. Nakisha brought it up another week without a sighting of
Yeah.
the dog.
Or Sam, I like you say that before Sammy.
Oh yeah, and the kid. I'm sorry. Yeah, the
I wonder
dog.
who's taking care of the dog, Steve, and her son Sammy. You know,
I hope their song is okay,
maybe
but where is Steve?
maybe Sammy's taking care of Steve.
I can't
Maybe
laugh. Every time I laugh, I start coughing up a storm.
Paramount. Where is our online bonus mini episodes of Sammy having a Home Alone situation with Steve as the purple people are trying to break into the house and Sammy is setting traps
Wait,
for them?
did the kid ever get picked up from school because they got in the accident on the way to pick him up? Imagine like this is worse than the dad going out to get cigarettes. This is my mom's were coming to pick me up from school and never showed up.
Oh my God, poor
Oh,
Sammy,
this
poor
this is
Steve.
this escalated. But anyways, I need a sighting of
Yeah.
Steve before this season ends.
Yeah, absolutely. I just need to know he's okay. Just an insert shot, Bart and Ashley. Just a shot of, somewhere, just Steve just chilling, living his best life. So yeah, God, it's tough for Misty. She's freaking out. The blood's freaking her out. She's just announcing
Shocking,
she can't
shocking
do
that
it.
she was like freaked out by it. I think it's the whole crystal thing because Misty, I just don't see her getting affected by that kind of, especially after what we know with adult Misty.
Yeah. And then though, we get Coach Ben, we need your help. Coach Ben comes over there, takes a look at this, and is just like, nope. I pressed play on the tape.
I
That's
pressed play on a tape. That's all I did. We all been there. We all press play.
yeah, just Shauna, I'm sorry. No, I don't think I can help with this. Oh, and then we get a shot of Javi. Javi is just chilling like in the corner during this.
I hope Javi's okay.
Yeah. But then Natalie is, yes, saying women have been having babies for millions of years. You're going to
I
be
love
fine.
that.
And then Akila's got this. And Akila's like, what?
Me?
And
at
then
least
she's
at
like,
least we know Nugget is okay.
yeah, we got a Nugget sighting. She's talking to Nugget. Sean's like, what? Who are you talking
Shona, who
to?
are you talking to? Like
Yeah.
it's just in the middle of giving birth and she notices
Yeah.
that. It was funny.
Misty's grabbing more rags. Everything's fine.
Misty's having a mental breakdown in the other room.
Van's freaked out. Everybody is, I mean, like, oh, but then Travis goes and grabs the animal skull.
Yeah.
And they're gonna do an offering. So I like that Travis cuts his hand. Lottie is putting a piece of hair, and Van is like, "Here's a button off my shirt." Here's my
Do you
offering to the
think
wilderness.
do you think this was real?
Yeah, I do. I do think this was real.
I'm very confused in the back and forward over what was real and what wasn't.
Well, I tell you there's an exact moment. And
Okay.
there's a big clue that I'm going to give a big thank you to a redditor that pointed this out. And now that I went back and confirmed this,
Okay. You'll
they
let me
told
know when
you.
we get
They
to it.
told you straight up.
Okay.
Okay? So yeah, we got the blood, we got the hair, and I think Van put a button down.
It's like really funny because I started thinking as I'm watching the episode, and that's what ended up happening. They got me again, but I started thinking about how Lottie walked into the playing mall that and she was obviously hallucinating, and that happened when we were losing her, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I should have put two and two together that some things that we were gonna see were not real, and that they all have these weird visions when they are about to pass.
Well, speaking of visions, Lottie's talking to her therapist in present day, and we never see the therapist.
Yeah,
Um, you have not watched this show yet, but for anyone who has watched the show Evil on Paramount Plus, I think you
I
can.
started it, Glenn.
You did.
Yeah.
Well, what do you? Okay, I have to ask. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm only a couple episodes in, but I had to put it down because I was watching it the other day and I was like, oh God, this is the kind of show that if I just sit here, I will sit here for hours.
I
Like I
told you.
really liked it. So
You let.
I'm gonna save it for the weekend when I'm recuperating for
Yes.
this week.
You like twisted religion and demonology, so I knew you would dig that show. But later in Evil, there's a therapy scene, and I think anyone that watches that show was expecting a cut to the therapist to be very similar. I think I know what we're gonna see when we finally see the therapist. I think it's gonna be pretty shocking. I think it's gonna happen next week, based
Okay.
on a preview for next. I saw a preview for next week's episode that confirmed what I think we're going to see. But I'm just saying this is
I
yes,
haven't
this is
seen the
not
preview yet.
yeah, this is not Lottie's usual therapist. I think we can all agree that there's something sketch or off about what's going
Well, I
on
thought they
here.
weren't showing it because remember last like the episode that she went to a therapist, she saw a different therapist.
Mhm.
So I like when I'm looking at it, I looked at it like, okay, is this her normal or did she go back to that specific
Yeah,
therapist? That's okay.
I think we're gonna see. But the way they're setting this up, this was super creepy just to keep it on Lottie the whole time, and is saying she's having these visions. And what's interesting also about this is that if you look at the subtitles in this episode, every time they refer to it, it is with a capital I.
I saw that
So
because I
saying
always had the captions on. I saw it.
yes. So when they talk about it being out there, it was real. This force, they're referring to it in a formal sense,
Right.
in a godlike way. Actually, God isn't capitalized, but it is capitalized, which is very interesting. And she's talking about giving a reference to this force, and she's saying, "What is it, Lottie?" And then Lottie says, "The power of that place." So you could tell that the pieces are coming together with all of them being at Lottie's compound, and whatever it was, it's going to be making an appearance in upstate New York.
Let me
But
ask you something, and
yeah,
I'm jumping the gun, but do you think
yeah,
them all being together is a good idea or a horrible idea?
I think it's going to. Okay, so this is off the top of my head, but this is a weird place to go. So if the darkness is in all of them, all of the girls, so we got Shauna, Nat, Misty, Ty, Van, and Lottie, the six of them, they're kind of like this fucked up Ultron that's going to join together
Yeah.
when they're all in this place because they've all got a little piece of the evil in them, but it's going to form
Yeah,
like the
so they
big
should never.
Ultron.
I think that's the reason why Van is staying so away from everything.
Yeah. Yeah, because they all come together. You can't have Ultron can't form if there's only three of the six. Wait, you're gonna have like two legs and an arm? No. You need all of
Correct.
them to make Ultron.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's a bad idea. I think it's a bad idea.
Yes. They're like demonic, fucked up Power Rangers. They're gonna come together
What?
to form
Please
a
don't make
larger
me laugh.
being.
You just call the demonic Power Rangers.
But that's what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen when they're together. They're gonna make a giant symbol robot, a mecha symbol.
Wait, didn't people need to come together to create Captain Planet?
I think, yeah. Well, I mean, they were all kind of ripping off.
I think they're more Captain Planet than Power Rangers because they connect to the wilderness. I'm just saying. I think it's more of a Captain Planet
Yeah.
situation.
So Lottie confirming they brought it back with them.
Yep.
And that shot just hangs on her. Then we go to drum circle therapy, which is exactly what I would assume they're doing at the compound. And there's crying therapy, and everyone's is talking about how there's relationships and they've all been dumped. And the guy's saying, "Oh well, with Walter, you're going through this too." And then Misty reveals her connection to Lottie and Natalie, and then Misty is a superstar.
I love how Misty like later in the episode refers to, oh, if you know Lottie around here, you're like famous.
Yeah,
They give you like VIP treatment. But yeah, have you ever been to therapy, Glenn?
I have. Yes, there was
Did
no
it
drums involved.
no crying? Any crying?
Yeah, but not like as part of therapy. It just ends up happening. You get to those breakthrough moments. You just keep talking.
Did it help you?
Therapy. That's a good question. Yeah, I think it did. I think it did. Also, I'll put it this way. I think you have to find the right therapist, and I definitely had some bad therapists before I found the right therapist.
Okay, okay. I think that's a conversation that not a lot of people have, and I think it's funny
Hmm.
because like if you take a look at what they were doing here, some people will say like, oh, weirdos, drugs, like crime. But like you said, the right therapist or the right kind of therapy, I also think
Yeah.
that you can create your own. I tried to go to therapy and maybe it's part of my issues, but I was like, why should I tell you all of my deepest secrets? I don't know you. You don't know who I am. You don't know what I'm all about. And then I lasted like one section.
Yeah.
It's just wasn't for me. Like maybe I have issues. Maybe I should go to drum therapy. That might be more for me.
Well, I think it's about whatever. I think the therapeutic process, this is me painting with broad strokes and no medical training or knowledge whatsoever. But in my mind, the therapeutic process is a way to provide a forum for you to have guidance in exploring your own thought process and own emotional process to come to the conclusion on your own. And so for me, I think it's about having the right questions asked for me to then talk, which, spoiler alert, I'm pretty good at, just sort of rambling and going places. But yeah, I could have a therapist ask me one question and an hour later I'm having a breakthrough and crying and I got myself there. Um,
But you know what's funny though, because I'm
yeah,
good at. I mean, it's what we do, right? I
yeah,
basically talk for a living, not about me or my own issues. I can't do that. I can talk
yeah.
about anything, anybody, all day. But like, once you try to turn it on me, and I don't know, it's just funny. Like, I feel like therapy should be talked about, or what works for some people, what doesn't work, or why didn't it work for you? Try this. Like, it's conversations that need to be had more often.
And you know what the most beneficial thing for me was as far as my own journey and thought process, and this might sound kind of crazy. Um, it was Loveline with Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew. Now, Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew now are not good people. I do not stand by anything they're saying. I think that like I just can't. I find them unbearable to listen to now. However, there are MP3s out there of Loveline from 1996 to 2006, and you'd have a typical episode where you would have 24 calls come in from people in their teens and 20s and even their 30s talking about their problems. And Adam and Dr. Drew, Adam would crack jokes and Dr. Drew would sort of take them through the journey. And I'll tell you that for me in my 30s, listening to those MP3s and just binging them, I would start with the episodes with guests that I like, but then I actually came to appreciate more of the episodes with Adam and Drew on their own. I will tell you that I feel like I learned more about emotions, relationships, and the human psyche listening to all those calls and those problems and challenges people were experiencing, and then reflecting on my own life and my interactions with other people through that gain knowledge. That it just blew my mind, and that taught me a lot about my own emotions listening to that.
That's an excellent point because I remember talking to a friend who is very much into therapy, and I explained to her what I just told you. It's like I don't want to talk about my issues. My dog is having a fit, and she told me to listen to certain podcasts or read certain books, and maybe I could figure out on my own without having to tell someone these things. So
Yeah.
it makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah, for me, especially with the relationships, because I feel that, for me, that was the key thing I needed to unlock and get over. And I think, in fact, I mean, I think part of the reason why my marriage and my relationship, now that I've been in for 20 years, has been so successful is I think that being able to listen through that prism and put in context all my bad relationships helped really open me up for my marriage and just where I'm at now. Great detail from the person leading the drum therapy that they're there because they dissolved a horse meat business they started with their brother-in-law.
Horse meat. You know
Horse
how I feel
meat,
about horses.
horse meat subscription.
Hmm.
Yeah, why aren't they advertising on podcasts? Get some of that. Misty saying I've never actually been through a breakup is interesting.
I believe it. You think she's dated?
Oh yeah, she had to kill them if it was ended. There was no breakup. Misty just
Oh
murdered.
my god, that's horrible. I don't see her dating. I don't see her as a big dater.
It's interesting to me. Yeah, but Misty is like a great example of just layers upon layers of emotional shielding and like fear of getting vulnerable. And I mean, there's just a lot going on there where I think they all have it. I think all the Yellowjackets have it, but I think Misty, I think even without this experience, I think Misty, again, this is a show about trauma, and every one of the Yellowjackets had trauma beyond what happened in the woods. Like there's other things they've been dealing with.
Correct. And they all came back and dealt with what happened in the woods in their own little way, which created more trauma.
Yeah. So we see Ben in a cabin having a hallucination to playing charades.
Speaking of Ben, John Ellis in the live chat is saying, I don't know, it's a dumb question, but we don't know if Coach Ben is alive 20 years later, right?
Well,
Because when they show scenes with Ben and his boyfriend, that was before the plane crash. Yes, that was before the plane crash.
Mhm.
Is he alive? Do you know?
No, I
They
think
haven't. They have never made that clear, right?
I will be shocked if Ben makes it to
So you're saying he's getting eaten at some point?
I mean, and he's missing a leg, so it's gonna be.
I mean, let's meet.
God, this show is so dark. Yeah. So he's having a flashback to charades with the boyfriend in a cabin with another couple.
He's crazy. He's already lost it.
I probably haven't played charades in a good 30, 40 years.
What is charades?
Charades, well, like how Pictionary is a game where you get a clue and then you have to draw something.
Yeah.
Okay, so charades is like a lesser version of that, where instead of having to draw something, you get a clue and you have to act it out with you have to like pantomime it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is what people did before the internet and good video games.
No, I grew up around these times too, but you gotta remember I grew up in a whole different culture and background. We would just go outside and play, I mean, we have nice weather, we have beaches everywhere. I grew up in Puerto Rico, so it was just a little bit different.
Yes. And then we cut back to but yeah, I worry about Ben. So we cut back to labor and we get, is that the head? And they start talking about it's purple. And oh man, yeah, it's the placenta. The placenta came out first. So this is the other huge tip off that this is not going to go well. In fact, we got a letter from a med school student who explained some medical facts about this, and we will get to those later in the episode.
I love fan mail. It's always so good.
This season, like I feel like last season we got some. This season we'll be getting a lot. And in fact, so we're releasing this episode late. Again, we apologize.
It's my fault.
I think this week will probably be coming out on Friday as well, not
yeah,
Thursday.
Yeah. We should be good this week as long as I don't die from whatever's going on in my chest right now.
Well, we'll see. But no, I have to say thank you for your tweets, your comments, your DMs, your emails. It's actually been, I know it sucks that we've been late, but it's been crazy just to see how much this podcast means to people. And in fact, our last episode, even before that, was our most downloaded episode this season. Most downloaded episode since the
I'm already in my feelings after the weekend I had. And when I talk about Yellowjackets, I'm very passionate about this project. It's different. It's one of my very first things that I've done outside of my normal, wrestling related things. And I love this community so much. They have shown me so much love on socials. And I think the other day we were doing, I told you about this. Showtime was doing a watch along live on their YouTube channel, the first episode. And I just remember commenting something on the chat, and so many people was like, "Oh my God, Yellowjackets boss is in the house!" And I was like, You guys know who we are. It was awesome. You guys are all amazing.
Angelo just tweeted at me saying demonic Power Ranger. My brain went to Go Go Yellow Jackets.
I love that.
Yeah, they're the Voltron of evil. So we get a shot of the placenta. I
Thank
did see
God.
online people that work in the medical profession are saying that the effects department did an amazing job with
Yeah, it was
with
very realistic. They didn't need to. They didn't. It wasn't necessary. And I'm
uh,
not squirmish. I love gore, but I was so squirmish with this episode. All of it. It made me uncomfortable. That's the best way to describe it. I was uncomfortable. You
yeah,
know how
forget
when we first got here, you said I never want to watch this episode again. I said same. I was uncomfortable with this episode. It's the best way to, not in a bad way, right? It's crucial for the story, but it made me uncomfortable, and that's how
yes.
good it was.
And let me tell you something about childbirth. As kids and teenagers, people would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna rent this crazy horror movie. It's super gory. Oh, I'm gonna rent Faces of Death. It's real." Like, just put on like, why didn't they have like metalhead teenager and horror fans renting childbirth videos? Because what we're seeing, like, that's bloodier, gorier, and more horrifying than any horror film.
But it worked here. There's like
Yes.
sometimes, like, if you watch a horror film like Hereditary, for example,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
there's a couple of scenes on Hereditary that you have to make in your own brain what is happening, and that makes it scarier, right? Because you have to kind of like try to figure out what it is that's happening, and your brain can mine is very dark. We know that, but here they didn't leave it to the imagination. They
Oh
show
yeah.
you what was happening, and it was yeah, it was something.
Oh my god, I was flipping channels the other day. I never seen Drag Me to Hell, and I'm like, oh, this is PG-13. How bad can it be? And I had to shut it off halfway through. I was just like, I can't.
It was a soft movie, though. I didn't think it was that much.
I don't know.
Well, we know in the dark one in this podcast. So
Yes. So Misty's doing the opposite of a pep talk. Misty is like in a spiral of hate and shame, just like talking shit to herself about herself. And
as
Lottie
she should
comes.
be, she just killed her bestie.
That's true. Uh, but I'm like, but she should have beat herself up about it.
Yeah, because she's your favorite. I've been telling you,
No.
Misty's dark and twisted. But says me, my favorite is Thaisa because Thaisa is that much better, right? Like, what am I talking about?
Yeah, I'm just like so far is Van like no, I don't know. Is there any guilt-free like
I think as of right now, Van is the most wholesome character to love. But we don't know. We don't know anything. But as of right now, I think Van is the most wholesome one. Because
so
I think
Lottie
Lottie has a lot of darkness in her. I just
yeah.
think adult Lottie could talk me into a cult anytime.
Well, there you
She
go.
just gives that energy.
So Lottie is talking to Misty saying snap out of it. Misty's like, we had a plan. We were gonna do the birth together. We were gonna sing a song.
What song would you sing during childbirth, Glenn? If you were helping deliver a baby, what would be your go-to song?
uh Diana Ross's I'm Coming Out. I don't know. I mean, something
No, come on. Bye. 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 No.
and then you know what would happen is that, well, it's not quite, it's too early because they're still in early 97. If you did it now, then you would go into the Diddy and Mace song that sampled that, you know? What was that, Mo Money, Mo Problems? Yeah, that'd be good. It'd be good times.
I'm coming out.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna be able to hear that song ever again without thinking of freaking, yeah, push it.
Yeah. Good one,
Why did I ask
Nikisha.
this question? Why did I ask this question? I got myself into this. Please
Push it.
tweet us or comment and let us know what would be your song, your go-to song during
Yes.
childbirth.
Nikisha's got, I think if the CPR people can co opt the Bee Gees staying alive, I think the National Lamaze Association should find a way to incorporate Push It into childbirthing routines. We could have a video and we get Salt and Peppa, and we should reunite them with Spinderella. I know they had a falling out, but we should reunite them for birthing Lamaze video to Push It. Nikisha, I think that's brilliant.
Amazing. Amazing. The circle of life.
I think you need to keep it like you can't look. You want to keep a good mood in there. You want to keep it fun. You want to keep it light. Some people might say, I'm going to sing Kate Bush's This Woman's Work, like, and she's having a baby. And that would be very deep and that'd be very nice. But Push It would be festive. It's got baby in the lyrics.
Yeah, it does. It does. I regret asking this question.
And you could have the OBGYN doing the now this song isn't for everyone, it's only for the sexy people. So you, sir, you need to get out of here. Every junior high dance, by the way, during that part, there would always be someone who would make that joke. When they said the song's only not for everyone, it's for the sexy people, there'd always be someone who made the joke saying, "You leave." Without fail.
Every single time.
Every single time. So Lottie is telling Misty, you could save Shauna. You could save our baby.
Did it not freak you out?
I'll tell you, we talked about this last week. There is something inherently funny and interesting, and I'm intrigued by this plot line. It is a little Rosemary's Baby, right? Like the idea that, yeah, like Lottie is just co-opting this.
It's the wilderness baby.
It's literally the wilderness baby. So Akila's like, Misty, you got this. And she's like, I'm great. Just push. I know. Like Misty is now in her game. She's telling her, just you're close. You're gonna get to meet your baby. Like this was just so nice. This moment where it seemed like, okay, we're through the worst of this. Misty's given the pep talk, and Shauna is gonna successfully give birth. Then we cut back to present day. Callie and Shauna are in the police station. They're going in there. And there's Jay. Everyone hates that cop. I think that cop has got the most punchable face on all of TV.
1000%. Right after Austin Theory. Wrestling fans will get that one.
Yes. And it's interesting they're splitting them up. And that they would even let Callie be interviewed alone. I guess it depends on the state. In most states, you have to have like a parent present. So I don't think Callie's 18.
Have they ever acknowledged her age? They haven't, right? Like we know she's still in high school, but if you're a senior, you could be 18 already.
Yeah, it could be. And it's interesting that Shauna did not learn from the cookie.
Nope.
And ask for a lawyer.
She gave everything away.
Everything. Well, not everything, but a lot. Van is asking if Miss Congeniality goes in Sandy good or Sandy bad. I remember liking the first Miss Congeniality.
Me too. I thought it was a great movie. It was cute.
There's a second one, isn't there? I don't think.
Yeah, I can't remember it. I saw it, but I can't remember it. There's so many movies that I haven't watched in so long.
Yes, there were a lot of I like the idea of sequels because I like the idea of spending time with characters that I enjoyed in the first film. But that being said, there's a lot of forgettable sequels that I just have no urge to rewatch.
Right. Sequels is all a conversation. You know that.
Yes. Okay, so Ty is talking to Van about the bills. Ty's saying, hey, I was a real estate lawyer. I could probably help. Van's like, I've got savings. But yeah, Van is hiding something. They need to figure this out. So they're asking, they get a phone call and they're saying this could be the hospital, but it's Misty, unknown number, and Ty picks up only because she thinks it could be the hospital. And it's interesting that Misty, when she's talking about the food is good, the BO factor is low. But Lottie is out of the institution. She's better. She's running this place. It's interesting that everyone's reaction is like, oh, well, I must visit there. I could use a wellness retreat.
I will go just to see if it's really her and what is going on and what is she really up to.
Yeah. And it's interesting that Ty's like, where is this place we should go? So yeah, very, very quick sell, right? Not even saying, I mean, like,
because they're all experiencing something. So at this point, I would assume they all gotta figure out why they're all feeling this way again.
Yeah, there's a draw. There's a magnetic draw. Back in the wilderness, they're chanting, "We hear the wilderness, and it hears us."
I don't hear nothing.
Have you ever been in the wilderness? Like, they're like nonstop noise, you know?
Yeah, I mean, no. I don't do the camping thing. The closest thing I ever done to camping was like an actual cabin in like I need
Yeah.
a real house with like a real restaurant or whatever. But I do remember like going outside and it was like terrifying. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna stay by the fireplace the entire time we're here. You guys have fun doing whatever you want to do.
Yes. In Cub Scouts, we camped out in a tent once, but
But I will say
now,
my mom and my dad both live in like what we consider the countryside of the island.
yes.
And I find that so much more terrifying than the city because you hear all these animals, all of these noises, all of these like my dad lives up in a mountain. Now I will say I never seen the stars the way that they look at my
Oh,
dad's
yeah.
house, right? Like
Great.
it's absolutely stunning. But then you start hearing all these noises and you don't know what's what. Nah,
Not
not for
feeling.
me. Not for me.
Um, I believe Ty gives Shauna a little totem to hold during the chanting, and during everything that's going on, which is interesting.
She should give her a hand to break. That's what I heard.
So they're telling her to push. She gives the big push. Um, and yeah, this is very intense. It's very, very intense. Misty saying, "I have the head in the palm of my hand. This is happening." Yeah, she's palming the head, and I mean, man, just looking like Shauna is having a very rough go of this, but it's almost over. She gives the big push, the scream, and yeah, then she ends up blacking out.
Right?
And oh man, almost exactly halfway through this episode that happens.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay. So then we hear whispering of Shauna, and here's how you know this is a dream sequence. The whispering of Shauna, as pointed out by Reddit user Foxes in Soxes,
I love that
it
name.
is they are reusing the audio from the first episode of the season of Jackie whispering to Shauna. And that's Jackie that's whispering to Shauna to wake her up.
Oh, no way. Now I gotta go back and listen.
Yeah, when you listen to it now, you cannot unhear that is Jackie whispering to Shauna.
Oh my god. Okay. That's a great catch by
Foxes
Foxes
and
in
Socks.
Success. Great name.
Yes. So Shauna comes to, and everyone is smiling, everyone is happy, everyone's telling her to wake up. And yeah, they hand her a exceptionally healthy looking baby.
I That was my first thought. That was my first clue. My first thought was that's a big ass baby. These people have been like starving to death. How did she like that's like a half grown baby they handed her.
Well, you can only cast, there are weird work rules for infants that are too young. So that you have to have a baby of a minimum age. I mean, but clearly, yeah, that looks like a
And
six
you
month
can
old
make a
baby.
fake little doll that moves. I've seen it all in horror movies. It's true though. Like I'm just saying, that was my first clue. That after the episode ended, I see what happened. I was like, I should have known when they handed her that big ass baby. There's no way that. I mean, we didn't see her belly, but it's just like she's starving the entire time. Like, how can you have that big and healthy of a baby? I would just assume it was gonna be, I
Yeah.
don't know, like all malnourished. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to sound
No, I
mean,
know,
but
I know. No,
they're all malnourished. You don't expect to see that healthy of a baby, and that now after I see the ending, I was like, yeah. Granted, the voice of Jackie should have given her away, but my first thought was that baby's too healthy. What is happening?
oh, I mean, look, I'm just gonna say this. We knew Shauna being pregnant and delivering a baby in the wilderness when they're starving and resorting to cannibalism. The odds of this ending well, somewhere between slim and none.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that they were in an environment where that baby could have survived for myriad of reasons, even if the pregnancy had been successfully delivered.
Right.
And it's tough. And it's like this is where we'll talk about this more at the end of the episode, but yeah, this is where it just gets grim for a variety of reasons. But here in the dream sequence, we see Shauna very happily meeting her son. Um, We got Van and Ty driving to the retreat. Van saying she prefers for the past to be the past, and
I
Ty
loved
pointing
it.
out
She
you
called her out.
you own a video store. You live in the past,
Yeah,
and I
but
like
she
what
said a
she's.
past that we thought we could be happy at, not
Yeah,
not the past that we actually had.
I have to admit, I felt seen and a little attacked by this as someone who spends an insane amount of time watching old MTV from the 80s and 90s, old TV shows, old commercial. There's a channel on YouTube called 80s Commercial Vault that is
Yeah,
just
we know it's your
commercials
favorite.
from
Well,
the 70s, 80s, and
people
90s.
that know you like me, because I'm your friend, know that that's your shit, Glenn.
That's
We
what we
know.
put on. Whenever we eat, that's what we put on is old commercials. So, but I think about it and it's like, why do I like it so much? It's not where Van where it's like, oh, a past where I thought, the future could be happy. Because I'm pretty happy with things. But I think there is something to be said for that wide-eyed optimism, hopefulness, connection with youth. Like I understand the pull of nostalgia. I think we all do to an extent, but it's interesting that Van is using it as a coping mechanism.
It's really funny because I like to think that I'm anti nostalgia and let's move on, let's keep evolving. But every once in a while something happens and I'm like, man, no, I do love nostalgia. So I go 50-50 with it.
Yeah, what'd you just get tattooed on your body? Something with no
Shut up.
nostalgic
Shut
ties
up. No,
whatsoever.
no nostalgic meaning whatsoever. I come on. Who was crying when freaking Carlito and Savio Vega
I
came
know.
out of
I know.
Backlash? It was that's what I mean. Like when I think when nostalgia is done the right way, man, it's so easy to get stuck in that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I just love the Ty Van scenes.
Yeah,
I want a
I
spin-off.
felt called and heard and seen when Ty asked her, "Hey, do you get your?" Well, she said, "Are you even dating? Do you give up in love?" And Ty says, "I get my needs met. I'm in some apps, strictly casual." And I was like, not that I'm doing that, but I was like, "Thank you." Like people assume if you tell them you don't want to date or you don't want to be with anybody. Like I don't understand why people automatically assume that you're miserable and can't come to the comprehension that people are can be happy being alone, or maybe there's issues that you want to work through before you give things a chance.
She's
You
got a
know?
lot. Yeah. No, I get it. And I think about this sometimes because I mean, you know, yeah, if for some, if I were ever single again, I don't know that I would ever be ready to have another
Right.
full blown relationship.
Right. My favorite thing is that Van was like, "Don't flatter yourself. It wasn't because of you." Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have that one person
Seriously.
that messes you up. Come on.
Yes. So Lisa brings Natalie Gilly the fish, saying, I think you need something to
No,
take responsibility
this
for.
was my second least favorite thing in this episode. If we didn't have everything that happened with Shauna in the wilderness, this was a stupid decision, and I said it as soon as she brought her that fish.
Yes. You need to be responsible for something other than yourself. She could have just given her an egg to take care of, like ninth grade health class. That was the other way they convinced us not to get pregnant. Take care of an egg for a week. You think that's hard? Baby, at least twice as hard as
You
the
give me
egg.
an egg to take care of. The first thing I'm gonna do is give it to a dog to see if the theory is true that they won't like drop it, and then it's done. Did you do that when they gave you an egg to take care of? Did you try giving it to a dog? You ever heard
I
of that?
I did not. I did
Yeah,
not.
dogs will take really good care of an egg. They won't drop it. If
So,
you try to give it to a big dog to eat it, they won't chew it. They just like politely put it down.
so if you had a baby, you think Roman could perhaps deal with the caretaking?
The Roman takes care of me. So maybe I don't know. Me and Roman would not know what to do with a child.
Yes. Let's see. She gives her the fish, and we shall see. Back to the wilderness. Shauna is with the baby. Oh man, trying to get the baby to latch and to feed. Trying to get the baby to stop crying. Natalie is there with her. Man, it's like, and watching it, aside from that original Jackie Q, I don't know that there were a lot of other hints. I remember reading something with the director, and they were like, "Oh, there's a lot of stuff if you look for it." And I'm like, "No, but I wasn't really seeing a lot that was out of place. I mean, this did seem plausible to me the first time that I was watching it, even though I didn't trust it entirely. It at least seemed plausible.
Right.
They bring in the cradle, which I have to say, in this era of everything being childproofed and protected, and we're like so afraid of a baby interacting with anything that could hurt it, this cradle just looks
Like a freaking trap.
yes.
Like a baby trap. It was so bad.
Back in present day, Jeff Sadecki's music choices continue
Did you
to
have
delight.
this on the Jeff playlist already?
No, I should add it.
So you need to add it. You need to add it.
Jeff is sitting outside a police station listening to "Fuck the Police" by NWA.
Outside the police station. What a rebel Jeff is.
This is the idea of like what a teenage boy thought was rebellious in the 90s.
I am drinking medicine straight out of the bottle.
Oh,
like
wow.
a responsible adult. You're welcome.
There you go. So Jeff answers Shauna's phone. It's Ty and Van telling her about the wellness retreat. And I like at the end how Jeff's like, "Hi, Van," and then they hang out.
Did you think that they gave Jeff too much info? Like, I don't know that I would have told Jeff all of that. When they're like, you have a message, they were like, okay, here's our whole life story. Like, they should have just said, I need her to call me immediately. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe they thought they would be at the retrieve already. Like, I'm not sure what the train of thoughts what to tell Jeff everything.
But my thought was that they wanted a 10-episode season and they got a 9-episode season, and they need to really condense some storytelling very fast.
Right, because then you see like Shauna will have to call them, and then like here we went from that to Shauna getting there. I get that.
This saved like 5 shoot days just by condensing. You know, this.
All right, fine, valid. I see it. Thank you.
So Misty's hanging out, regaling people with stories of the Yellowjackets soccer team when Natalie sees her. And Natalie, like, not completely bummed that Misty's there.
You think so?
I mean, she's not avoiding her. You know?
Can you avoid someone in a cult?
That's a good question.
Aren't we all family in a cult?
But I like how Misty's like, "Oh, I could totally get why you're into this place." Like, Misty has really turned a corner on this.
And if you know Lottie, you're really popular.
Yes. At first I was a little disturbed by the crying, but it must be good for you. Look at how happy everyone is.
Man.
But I like that Natalie wants to know what happened to Walter.
That guy you were with.
Yes. And she's saying, "Oh, he went home."
Walter did not go home. He's gonna show up at some point.
Yeah, you better. I miss Walter. Walter and Misty's chemistry was so much fun.
Do you think Misty's still a virgin?
No, God, no. Remember, she was like manipulating that guy into having sex with her in episode 2. Remember?
Yeah, but you could do that and not actually have to do it.
She gets her needs met, Issa.
She's on apps, strictly casual.
She's on apps. Well, and remember there was a thing with Christina Ricci that was saying, and I was basically saying that like Misty's not fetish, but part of what she really enjoys is a power dynamic sexually.
Right.
Is like manipulating men into having sex with her. Right. Which is really fucked up.
Yeah, no, we don't need to talk about it.
Yeah, like but that's her thing. Yeah. So you know, I do not think she's a virgin. So back in the wilderness, baby's crying, Shauna unsuccessful feeding. Man, like this was so tough to watch, and it's so it's tough to watch, and it's made 100 times more impactful knowing how this all ends in this arc. But yeah, like I can't, just it's tough.
Sorry, I know that I heard of, like, not only I think she wasn't, they mentioned that she wasn't producing milk, which makes sense with the lack of nourishment, but I have had friends and people in my family that have that issue with the baby latching when they originally have the baby, and it can actually be a very hard experience for a brand new mom to not be able to feed your baby. Like I can't imagine how tough
Oh
that must
yeah.
be.
Well, and she has a added difficulty because she can't just get formula or make a bottle or do
Right.
something.
Or pump, like we do
Yeah.
today. But, I know that a lot of moms like are going to give birth and they go into this idea that the baby's going to latch and you're going to breastfeed and you're going to have that moment of, raising your baby with your providing the nourishment. And I know that outside of her not producing milk, I met a lot of women that struggle with that part of the baby latching, and like seeing it here, it was breaking my heart.
So then we cut back to Shauna and Callie being interrogated. And it's interesting. I mean, Callie just sort of avoiding the questions at first, just not wanting to engage and yeah, not wanting to be there. I mean, you could see that she's thinking, right? Shauna, though, does something very interesting, and this is where the cop's reaction is like sort of well done, because what Shauna does is she basically sets up this scenario is why she's been avoiding this, why she would lie, why she would cover this up. That for her, it was a huge deal that she was hiding the affair with Adam because it's her admitting how fucked her marriage is, how she doesn't, how she doesn't feel this intense attachment to her husband or child.
Yeah, this was intense.
Yeah, I mean this was a very important confession, but not to the end that we thought it was going to be.
Right, right, but it makes sense. She said she didn't want to be a mom. She didn't want to get married. It was all out of guilt. There was a lot of information to process that Shauna let out here.
By the way, I've known some people before that they would probably rather confess to murder than confessing to the fact that they didn't want to be a parent and they don't really like their kid.
Yeah,
Like that to them is probably like the worst thing that they could ever possibly admit. Um so I get this, but look, I mean, I think that this is going to be tough this year. I think both young Shauna and old Shauna are going to be competing in the same category, or not old Shauna, adult Shauna,
right.
and young Shauna are going to be competing in the same category for lead actress in the Emmys, and they both crushed it in this episode.
Yo, facts.
Yeah, this was great.
Young
So
Shauna has just impressed me so much. The emotions that have come out of her, the things that she's gone through in this particular season, with the whole Jackie, and we saw her like that scene when she realizes that Jackie's gone. This scene today, I mean, in this episode, like this actress, she gets it. She knows exactly what she's doing.
and then Callie saying she was a virgin and that she was seduced by Officer Syracusa.
Kylie has really turned a corner with me in the last few episodes.
Yes. And Kevin saying, making false statements is a crime. And Callie saying, who's the jury going to believe? Especially when they ask me to describe his weird ass balls. I think that's a pretty good bluff because all balls are weird. So I think Syracuse is going to be, I think Syracuse is going to hear that and be like, oh shit, how'd Callie know I have weird balls? We never had sex.
I mean, she killed it here.
Yeah.
And that's why I gotta give a shout out to Shauna for making the very inappropriate comment earlier that most parents shouldn't make, but she did, and Callie picked up on it, and she's a smart girl. She's definitely Shauna's kid.
Yeah. No, Callie, MVP, saving this.
Yeah.
So back to the wilderness. This was tough that Shauna wakes up and cradle is empty, and Lottie is humming Farajaka and trying to feed the baby.
Yeah.
Oh, but then though, little slip there saying that we need to feed. And
yeah.
she's setting up what Sean is going to hallucinate later.
Correct.
So part of this awesome email we got from Katie is saying the delusion of Lottie breastfeeding is that some people chronically on antipsychotics, which Lottie was prior to the crash, can actually develop spontaneous milk production. So it's in the realm of possibility that Lottie could be lactating and feed the baby.
What?
Yeah. There's a couple things. God, don't want to get into the whole story of how I know this. There's like a pituitary thing. There's a few reasons why lactation can happen aside from being pregnant.
I heard about women also experiencing like pregnancy symptoms and not being pregnant.
Hmm.
But I that's a different thing.
Well, if we learn from Meet the Parents, you can milk anything with nipples.
Thanks a lot, Glenn.
I'm trying to inject some levity here. This was a grim fucking episode.
No, too much.
So yeah, Shauna not happy with this. Not happy with this at all. And takes her baby back from Lottie.
Yep.
So present day, Shauna gets in the car, is talking to Jeff. Yeah, not.
Jeff, is the I need to make a TikTok where I just put together all his reactions because when Shana tells him that she told the police about the affair, his what was so
Yeah.
good. Like he has the best reactions ever.
And the gun in the glove box.
You driving around with that thing?
I mean, Chekhov's gun, right? They've referenced it, they've introduced it. We saw it in the preview. Like that gun might be coming into play later this season.
Oh my god, Glenn, too much. We better not have to wait a year for the next season.
Well, with the writer's strike, who knows?
Oh my god, you're right. And you know what? It was so funny because the other it's not funny at all. But the first like news report that I saw, they actually use a picture of Yellowjackets for like the writer's strike, and I'm like, please stop.
Speaking of Chekhov's gun, I have to make a quick recommendation. I watched a really, really good movie this weekend.
What was it?
It's called Vengeance, and it's written and directed by BJ Novak from The Office. And it's a comedy. It's dark comedy, but it has one of the great Chekhov's gun discussions I've ever heard. One, perhaps the greatest Chekhov's gun discussion I've ever heard in anything. But he plays a podcaster who's trying to solve a murder mystery in Texas. It is a very, very good movie. I watched it as a double feature with A Simple Favor with Anna Kendrick. Those two movies were great back to back. Highly recommend checking those out. But Jeff and Shauna, I think fans of Yellowjackets will appreciate both A Simple Favor and Vengeance. So yeah, Shauna tells Jeff what she said to the police. Jeff's freaked out about the gun, saying you're out of control. And this is where, it is very convenient based on Ty's call, where Jeff like just wants to, for lack of a better word, like ship Shauna off and say, you should go to this retreat. You need help. You can lay low while the cops are looking towards this.
Would you tell somebody that like the cops are looking into to get out of town? Because that is the guiltiest thing you could do when the cops are looking at you.
It depends. There's a very good 80s movie called Clean and Sober with Michael Keaton, where he wakes up, he has a drug problem. He wakes up next to someone who OD'd and the cops are looking for him. So he checks himself into rehab and then actually ends up going through rehab. It's a very good movie. I think Michael Keaton was nominated for an Oscar for it. But
I think I've seen it.
Yeah, but I get the idea. I get the idea that Jeff is saying this is probably a really safe place for you to be, to just get out of Dodge for a while the heat cools down.
Right. Makes sense.
And she's like, oh, Natalie and Lottie are there too. This is the weird thing, though, because given the anxiety they all had about the high school reunion, it's interesting how Shauna is okay with this idea.
Because that's not the high school reunion. The only people that know them, there are people that have gone through what she went through, not people that are going to be asking about it.
I'm telling you, Jeff is already making the list of the movies he and Randy are going to watch when they have the house to themselves. They're going to be like, Callie, why don't you go sleep over to friends? Why don't you go date another cop? You know, we can, me and Randy can have some bro time. But Callie comes in and says what happened. She's like, oh my God, we're going to jail. And I was like, no. And Callie's revealing her plan in which she just unleashed. So it'll be interesting if the whole thing gets tossed due to Callie.
Yep.
Next, we have the second most uncomfortable scene in this episode. Well, maybe the third. Probably the third. I knew the baby eating was a dream sequence, but this Natalie's going to kill the fish out of mercy, and we see it trying to breathe out of water. God, it's just so hard to watch.
That was not necessary.
She relented though and put the fish back in the water, and then fed the fish.
I hated everything about this.
Yes. Yes. Shauna has an amazing moment of talking to her child, bonding with her child, and her child finally feeds.
Right. This was, man, they got us. Such a
We're-
good moment.
I was crying during this scene.
Yeah.
So juxtapose this with what Shauna told the police. In this moment, Shauna very much wants to be a mom and is very bonded with her baby. And it's very interesting to see the younger Shauna have this experience compared to her attitude towards parenting in present day with Callie.
Well, yeah, because this experience didn't really happen. That's why we see a Shauna that wants to be a mom. We see a whole different version now that we know that didn't happen. Makes sense.
And she didn't want to be a mom originally. I mean, she tried to terminate the pregnancy in the wilderness. She was not looking forward to this. But you see in this scene where the experience has moved her to where, she feels such a close bond with this child, the closest bond she has ever felt with another living thing.
Right. But it didn't happen. They did this just to mess with our emotions, man.
Well, not just that. I mean, this messed with Shauna's emotions. Right. To Shauna, this was real.
Correct.
Which is interesting. Some people are speculating Shauna having postpartum psychosis, which I'm not.
I don't think that's what it is. I think that all of them have been proven that if they have a near-death experience in the wilderness, they go through some kind of weird vision.
Yeah.
Or alternative reality. Sorry.
We'll see how long it lasts.
And Shauna has been crazy from the beginning. She's talking to dead ass Jackie for weeks. So Shauna is not all there. That has been proven. She sees Jackie and talks to her. So I'm not shocked that she's having visions of her baby being still alive and with her, because she was still seeing Jackie.
Natalie brings her some tea. Shauna says, "Don't tell the others about this yet." She wants to have the moment to herself. Although just watching this, the baby looking up at her, just such a nice scene. Oh man!
Except for it didn't happen, Glenn.
Somehow makes it worse.
I know.
I mean, I bad enough. Do you ever have those a really profound dream and you wake up and you're just bummed? You're like, "Oh wait, that wasn't real."
Yeah.
Like this I can imagine is much worse. Van and Ty are outside the compound, and Van is saying, "Come on, we can go to IHOP instead. Let's leave."
Why would you try to bribe her with IHOP?
I mean, pancakes do sound lovely.
I don't know. It would take more than pancakes to me. It would take like a shoe sale.
Look at some pancakes and shoes. It'll be great.
Yeah. Sample sale somewhere. That would get me to not go there.
And Van is saying, if you see any barrels of Kool-Aid powder in there, call me for an extraction.
So at this point, we know that Van is just dropping Ty off. She's not planning on staying.
Yeah, and here's the crazy thing, though. They see Shauna drive by with Jeff. So everyone's getting there very quick. It's a very quick trek.
Yeah, but it took forever for Walter and Misty.
Yeah, well, they had to find it. Now they have directions. You just MapQuest. What year is this?
MapQuest? Yeah. Well, it is 1996. You're right.
Well, then,
I know. I'm sorry. We're back on present day. I just
why
got
the
confused.
fuck did I say MapQuest? Why was that my point of reference? It's not Waze or Google.
Well, you are a very nostalgic individual. I can totally see you sending me MapQuest directions.
Yeah, print it out.
Please. Okay. If what we were talking about, me coming to Vegas, happens, please, when you give me the directions to come visit you, send them on MapQuest. I am begging you.
Yes, and be like, print this out.
Yeah.
And bring this with you, and you'll find it great.
And give it to the Uber driver, because I'm not renting a car. Yeah. Imagine call Uber and giving a freaking printed map and be like, "Can you take me here?"
Here you go. But what's crazy about this is that Van sees Shauna and Van's just like, okay, I'm here. I'm going in. Like that's do you ever I mean, we all have that, right? When it's a group of friends hanging out, it's like, oh, I don't want to hang out. But then there's the one person that's there, you're like, okay, now I'll go.
Yeah.
That's who Shauna is for Van.
It
Uh,
doesn't make sense that Shauna got there before them unless they stopped a lot. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Misty's doing basket weaving. Natalie is stumbling when she walks out. I just rewatched
Yeah,
this.
she's on something.
Natalie is on something.
Hmm.
Shauna is there. Shauna and Natalie hug. Misty comes to join them. Van and Ty come out, and we get that shot of the five of them. And then they look at Lottie.
Yeah, and then Van goes like hypnotized immediately,
Yeah. Yeah.
which makes me think Van is obviously staying.
Yeah, she's definitely staying. You don't do a drop off with this. Lottie's looking out across the lake in the woods. Van is like freaking out a little bit. She's having a moment. Lottie looks at Van and is freaking out. Lottie goes to join them. And then we pan and get this overhead shot. And wouldn't you know it, the ceremonial grounds make the symbol. The symbol is drawn in the ground.
Yeah,
And they're
great
all
reveal.
there
Great
to form a
reveal.
fucked up Ultron.
Yeah.
And then the credits come on and the episode ends. See you next week, everybody.
Yep. No, that's not what
Was-
happened. You had me for a second.
If that would have been the end of the episode, I would be feeling so much better about this.
Yeah.
There is nothing I want to talk about less than the end of this episode. I'm just thinking, like, I watched it that for again, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, very heavy, but then I watched this and the ending, and I was like, oh fuck. And then last night watching it with my wife, I was like, oh fuck.
Right.
Like, and then I was thinking about it, and I just started like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So Shauna wakes up to an empty crib and she hears this humming. I still can't figure out what the song is. People have theories about what it is, but we don't know what the song is that the group is humming.
Right.
But Shauna gets up and her baby's not there. She goes out and you see that scene from the credits of everyone with their faces all bloody. And the idea is that they've stolen the baby and eaten the baby. And that's what Lottie was prepping for, that this, and Coach Ben too. Everybody is eating the baby.
Oh, horrible.
Yes.
Do you think that's gonna be the future of the baby?
No, I think they're gonna bury it.
You don't think they're gonna eat the baby?
No. I think
How certain are you that they're not gonna eat the baby?
well, I might have seen the promo for next week's episode. I mean, they're
Okay.
definitely next week's episode is called Burial.
Okay. Okay.
I think this is a line they won't cross, and the placenta is debatable. I think if it had been a successful pregnancy, I think they would have eaten the placenta. But some people do that anyhow, which I've never understood. Like ever since I was a kid, I thought that was a strange tradition. But I don't know. I don't know. You said you freeze, or are you just making that face? Issa's frozen. That's my reaction to the idea of eating the placenta. And people would tell me about that too. It was always very strange that people would just drop that detail. And it was never them though. It was never like, oh, there was a baby and we ate the placenta. It would always be like, I knew somebody who ate the placenta. Some people, I'm going to read about this because Issa's power drop. She's going to be right back. Some people claim, interesting. Some people claim there's health benefits of eating placenta, preventing postpartum depression, postpartum bleeding, improving mood, energy, and milk supply. Where's that supplement? When can I go to GNC and get some placenta? God, that sounds crazy. Granted, I'm vegan as a disclaimer, so just pointing out that I would not do such a thing, but some people do that. One of the top questions being asked: did the Kardashians eat placenta? Apparently, Kourtney Kardashian ate placenta when she gave birth to her third child, and Kim her second. Some of them had it encapsulated and then took it. Okay, that I understand a bit more because I think it's very it's easier to palate something when you don't have to, you know, when it's in a capsule. Anyhow, yes, 7D GNC placenta. I'm surprised. I'd be shocked. That seems like a type of supplement you could get. Ghost, the fine people at Ghost Energy. When are you going to come out? You've got the energy drink Sour Patch Kids. When is the Sour Patch placenta supplement, the placenta powder, going to come out? I'll be first in line for that in the limited edition Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collab that you're doing. Anyhow, this vision of them eating the baby is disturbing, but also very over the top. You do not see the baby itself. You just see the bloody baby blanket. So you have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Shauna, obviously horrified by this. One of the most dramatic and shocking moments in Yellowjackets history. Lola in the chat is saying, the story I heard was that people would dry the placenta and wait until the kid's 7th birthday and then mix it in the kid's food. That sounds lovely. As a child, I wouldn't eat liver because I thought it sounded weird. I don't think placenta would have gone over very well. Just thinking about this. It's making me feel a little nauseated. But Shauna's screaming no and then wakes up. And then we find out that everything she experienced, the bonding with her child, all of that was a dream. And similar to what Issa was saying, not postpartum psychosis, as some people have speculated, but the idea that she had the death dream similar to what Jackie experienced. Issa's back.
I'm back. Sorry.
You missed a lot of placenta eating talk. That's
great. I'm glad I missed that. It's like I find it very weird that my power completely went off as we're talking about the part that I didn't want to talk about.
Yes. So Shauna wakes up. It's a dream. The baby was stillborn. It didn't make it. And man, this is tough to watch because Shauna still thinks they ate the baby. They have to present her with the stillborn baby wrapped in fur. So we never actually see the stillborn baby.
Right.
Misty's apologizing. I mean, this was just so tough to watch and to watch Shauna's reaction. But then Shauna talking about she can still hear the baby crying and why can't they hear it crying? And she is just in this trance of unspeakable sadness. I mean, everyone is sad, but she is also confused what is real, what was a dream.
Great acting in this scene. I felt all of it.
No, I mean, heartbreaking, harrowing, the looks on everyone's faces. I mean, just even watching this now without sound, this is a very tough scene to watch. And again, I can't imagine somebody that has gone through this process of losing a child during birth watching this episode. I mean, that's not something you never get over that. And imagining Shauna's grief and trauma through this really puts in context the adult character that we've come to know and love and now feel great empathy and sympathy for based on this experience of what she went through in the woods. I mean, not only losing her best friend Jackie and then losing this child, which as we see here is even more devastating than her reaction to losing her best friend. I mean, this was a very powerful, painful, sad way to end the episode with Ty hugging Shauna hugging her baby and asking why can't they hear him crying. It's just a very sad ending. And then we had credits over the silence and then the humming. I never want to watch the end of this episode again. This is one of the most uncomfortable things that I've seen on television. One of the most emotionally moving things, and credit to Sophie, is Shauna, and everyone involved in the production of this. This was so exceptionally well done.
Yeah, it was very tough to watch, and you feel every emotion. And now we know the baby didn't make it, which was a question that we all had.
Yeah. So Katie basically confirmed that what they said about the placenta coming out first is placenta previa, which is the placenta covering the cervix, and that creates a blockage for the fetus to pass through. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, in situations like this, a C-section is required for successful pregnancy.
Oh.
But this is why there's so much bleeding, and the baby was cut off from oxygen as a result. So, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So medically, that explains. Katie, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
Man, just this episode, it's interesting, right? There's a little in the chat saying like, yeah, I don't know if I can rewatch this. I have never had this reaction before in watching Yellowjackets, where if we had to do this Thursday, I would have been like, I can't do this tonight. I would have said we have to wait a day or two.
Yeah, like let it process.
Yeah. And I want to be not just super respectful of this, but I think, you know, in a way, I'm glad we ended up doing this so late because, and I know you just watched the episode, but I mean, for me being able to lead this discussion, having those few days to process this, read about it, even the thing about Jackie's voice and whisper in the dream sequence has helped for me contextualize this episode a bit better. So I appreciate everyone's patience in us getting this episode out. And I know this is kind of a downer end to what's normally a lively podcast, but this was definitely a very
I personally think if I ever rewatch or if I do a binge, I will stop when they get to the retreat, and I wouldn't watch those last few minutes. They were gut wrenching.
Yeah. All in all, a very good episode, yes, that I never want to see again, or at least the end.
Correct. Really need to know what's going on with Natalie, because adult Natalie just came off so different in this show, and I know that she's going through something.
Well, next week, actually in a couple days. So I think we're going to do, Issa, if it's okay with you, we're going to do Friday this week because Thursday evening have plans. So we'll probably do Friday morning Pacific time. But we're going to find out what happens to young Shauna in the aftermath. There was a clip shown on the MTV Movie and TV Awards last night, and I'll just say that things are tense. We've seen the preview for next week. People are worried that Ben is near his end. We will see what happens there.
Oh, he's losing it. Yeah.
Yes. And Demonic Ultron is going to begin to form at Lottie Matthews' compound.
Can't wait.
Yes.
I need to go find this clip. I haven't seen the preview yet.
Yes. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. As always, email us at yellowjacketsbuzz@gmail.com and follow us on the socials. Links are in the show notes. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your patience so much. And we'll catch you back here next time on Yellow Jackets Buzz. Take care.
Bye, guys.